One. Good afternoon. It is Monday, November 14, 2022. This is the Affordable Housing Committee meeting. We do have a quorum with Hauser, Allen, Mendez, Parker, Sepulveda, Sledge, Taylor, Toombs, and Welch in attendance. Before we get started on our resolutions, we have two speakers that I'll introduce that will be speaking to the resolutions we'll be moving on tonight. Our first speaker is Ashley Brown from the Barnes Fund. Where is she on here? Okay. All right.
Hello, everybody.
You should be.
I don't think it's not this one. Okay. Here we go. Hello, everybody. I'm Ashley Brown. I'm the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Manager for the Barnes Fund. And sitting up here with me is our brand new employee for the Barnes Fund, Rashida Pardue. I wanted to introduce you to her. This is the first time that the Barnes Fund has had truly two dedicated staff members full-time to just Barnes Fund work, so we're very excited for Rashida to join us. Moving on, this is for our funding round 10. It encapsulates RS 2022-1857 as well as RS 2022-1858. For this first one, the council allocated the funding for this grant round in December 2021 through the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. Those were then put into a grant round by the Housing Trust Fund Commission for a grant round that began in March 15th, 2022. 16 organizations applied for a total of $25,154,919. The External Review Committee recommended approval for 16 of the 17 applications. So 15 total organizations were funded. There was one applicant that had 2 applications. The total funding amount for this award cycle was $19,995,144. In addition to the financial awards, the External Review Committee recommended approving 14 parcel awards to 3 organizations, which the Housing Trust Fund then reviewed and approved at their July 14th meeting. Both the small organization and the urban zoning overlay funding subsections were fully utilized in this round, meaning that they were expended in whole. No rehab applications were received as part of this funding round. As a reminder, all of the Barnes funds, when they are granted out to an organization, are given out on a reimbursement basis. So those funds sit in the Barnes Fund account until they are made, a draw is made on them by the organization for the completed work after its inspection. In April, the Housing Trust Fund Commission voted to approve an extension to the application timeline because of the low-income housing tax credit awards that were delayed this year. That means that our application period was a bit longer for this open cycle of grant applications, and it closed on June 6th. On June 10th, an internal and external review began in which one of our Housing Trust Fund commissioners, as well as all of our external reviewers, which were comprised of 5 community members. Again, thank you to all of those that participated in our external review. They are key to helping us score all of those applications. And then finally, when that concluded, it went to the Housing Trust Fund Commission to review and then vote on those actual awards. Once the awards are voted on, it goes into a contract period where Metro Legal, as well as the legal counsel of the nonprofit organizations, work together to make sure that the contract all of the requirements are met of the contract, as well as the as you can see, many documents that we have to get. It includes 96 additional documents, which is why the actual legislation packet's over 800 pages. So thank you for your patience. But we had a lot of organizations this time around and a lot of extra items to make sure that we had recorded. So we had 2 rounds of contract review by the actual Housing Trust Fund Commission. That was finally approved at the end of September, and all of the property entered mandatory referral period for the property donations. That takes about 30 days, which is why the legislation is now coming before you to review. Here you can see from this table there are 61 total units from this round that will serve folks below 30% of the area median income. For one person, that annual income would be $19,800 850 or less. There are 662 total units at or below 60% of the area median income. For one person, that would be about $39,660 or less for their annual income. And there is an additional 39 units of homeownership at or below 80% of the area median income. For one person, this would look about like $52,580 or less for their annual income. Moving to the right side of the chart, you'll see the total amount of barn subsidy broken down by homeowner and rental categories. As a reminder, we did not have any rehab applications this round. So meaning for every dollar that Barnes puts into the deal, the organization was able to leverage it with about $11 from other external funding sources, including federal grants, organizational equity, and conventional financing. Here's a summary of all of the different awards by map. I know the council members also received another map inside of this Barnes funding overview packet. The map that's included in this packet is specific to all of the total directly cumulative units of Barnes ever funded. This map right here is only for the units in this round. There are 10 actual council districts represented by this particular funding round. Here you'll see a breakdown of the three organizations and which properties they are slated to receive. You can see which subsection they applied for. 4 of the parcels will be granted to Be a Helping Hand Foundation, which are rentals for large families where there's a woman head of household. These units will be 4-bedroom homes, which are some of the scarcest rental units to actually produce. Other than that, the rest will be home ownership units by Affordable Housing Resources and Living Development Concepts. For home ownership in this round, I've listed all of the organizations here that applied. This is the most home ownership applications we've ever received in a single round. For here, I will go ahead and read the amounts and the organizations receiving that funding. All of these are listed in RS 2022-1857. Living Development Concepts Incorporated, $750,000. Thistle Farms, a first-time applicant, is receiving $195,125. New Level CDC for $3 million. Affordable Housing Resources, $275,000 to match their reduced parcel awards from 11 to 6 in accordance with the land donation policy of the Housing Trust Fund Commission. Habitat for Humanity of Greater Nashville is $1,980,000. For rental in round 10, we also have contracts to review with Crossbridge Incorporated, Be a Helping Hand Park Center Urban Housing Solutions, William Franklin Buchanan CDC. All these organizations and the homeownership applications, if they were in a subsection, urban zoning overlay, or the small organization priority set aside, all of those were funded in full. Only applications from the large applicant pool were reduced in funding to match the amount of the funding that we had allocated to this round. Project Return, Woodbine, Mary Queen of Angels Incorporated, Pathway Lending, and Appalachian Home and Health. The last 3 listed there are actually included in RS 2022-1858. The other Project Return and Woodbine are included in 1857. Again, those last 3 took a little bit longer to go through the contract period because they are larger deals, and specifically all of those are in 1858. Thank you. So here are just a couple of takeaways as we're thinking through the amount of awards in this packet. Number one, it's the largest award cycle that we've ever had for Barnes, $19,995,000, 144 Barnes investment in a single round, 15 community partners funded in this round, along with 14 land parcels with an average of 11-to-1 leverage for Barnes. That actually brings up our Barnes total portfolio leverage to 9-to-1. small organization and urban zoning overlay subsections were completely utilized. All that funding was met with the requests. Most homeownership applications in a single round, and the largest funding round to date with the most new applicants, of which there were 5. So a lot of great things to take away from the Barnes Fund investment for round 10. I have my information here if you have any questions. I know that we're running a little bit behind tonight.
Are there any questions for Ashley? Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's exciting to see the leverage that Barnes is doing. Our next speaker will be Angie Hubbard.
I don't know where our tech person went to navigate, so let me see if I can pull up my presentation. But while I'm doing that, good evening. I'm Angie Hubbard, Housing Director with Metropolitan. Can you see this? Yes, here we go. I'm just going to do a very brief overview of the request for $30 million of Year 2 of American Rescue Plan funds. We will reserve, our team will be here as you take up each of the resolutions to ask specific questions, and then we also should have representative from MDHA to answer any questions related to their request. I wanted to give you just an overview of how we got to the 4 recommendations or requests that we're making. First is to further the goals of the Affordable Housing Task Force, but more importantly, respond to our housing challenges, particularly for those populations that are most impacted by economic shocks. So you'll see that our requests are targeting populations that typically have not had access to home ownership, as well as housing opportunities for older adults and for families. The latter two are particularly more vulnerable to economic shocks, both through the pandemic that we've experienced and for which we're receiving these funds, but also just in general as there's economic pressures. When older adults and or families lose their housing, it's harder for them to gain access into other housing in our city because we're not replacing those opportunities at the rate for which we're losing them. The other overarching goals are to create systems change. We do have a massive need to build over 50,000 units by 2030, but we also must have a level of intentionality around that and understand that we need to address housing across the broad spectrum and address longstanding housing inequities. I hear a lot that we have great bread and butter programs like the Barnes Fund and those administered by MDHA, but there's also a call for us to be bold and innovative, which you'll find in these requests, and then to ensure long-term affordability. All of our requests for programs that involve new construction will have a 30-year affordability restriction. Where we can, we will also utilize Metro-owned property that we can put in a land trust or ground lease so that we do have ultimately that long-term control. This is just a timeline of what we've been. We've been before the COVID Oversight Committee 3 times. We introduced our initial request back in June. We spent really 2.5 months, about 6 weeks of meetings with 3 different stakeholder groups around opportunities for equitable homeownership, around older adult needs, and around housing for families to arrive at our final recommendations. We did a lot of systems mapping, so to figure out where do we need the most resources to plug in and to be creative and impactful. And we ultimately received approval from the Oversight Committee on October 19th. So just quickly, these are the resolutions. Again, our team is available to answer any questions as you take them up, but I just want to hit some highlights on these recommendations. On the pathways to equitable home ownership, I want to leave this fact to you. 62% of all white households in Davidson County own homes. However, only 38% of black households in Davidson County own homes. If black households own homes at the rate of white households, we would need an additional 17,500 black homeowners. Using that same analysis, we would need an additional 5,800 Hispanic homeowners. So what we are doing is opening the doors and creating those pathways, both through having the inventory, because we've got to have that product to purchase, but also creating a network. We have found through our systems mapping that there are financial counseling and mortgage counseling as well as down payment assistance programs, but there's not a network to create people that need those services to make them buyer ready. So that's one of the things that we're looking to create. With our opportunities for older adults, we're looking at 3 different initiatives. All of these are around creating new inventory, rental product for homeowners, for renters, ages 62 or up. We used age 62 because that aligns with the HUD eligibility requirements for older adults in their programs, and we do hope to leverage. We're introducing a new concept around allowing homeowners to apply for funding to create shared housing improvements. And those would allow the homeowner to age in place to make additional living space for multi-generational housing, for someone to live on site to be a caretaker, or even to rent that space out. And then to create a new technology for home sharing if they did want to participate and make their housing available for rent. Wherever you've seen a mark through, that's where we changed our from the initial proposal to COVID oversight to our final. We are proposing to make some of this funding available through the Barnes Fund because we have that structure already available for delivery, and it makes sense to do dedicated funding rounds. And then our last one started out as just being innovative housing solutions, and as our working group continued to meet, we found that families at 50% of the area median income or below really struggle, not only with having housing for their families, but also having a measure of agency and rights within those housing. So looking at innovative solutions such as cooperative housing actually came about after a lot of research and a lot of talking with people that have worked in this space, and that's our recommendation for $7 million for to create the housing for families. And then finally, part of this request is additional funding to create affordable units at Envision Casey. MDHA should be here to answer any questions you have about that. I know that was very quick. Again, you'll be taking up each of these resolutions. I believe there are 2 other ARPA-related resolutions on your calendar that are more service-oriented. These 4 for the $30 million are focused primarily on creating the new inventory. And with that, I can take questions now, or Madam Chair, defer back to you to take up the legislation in the interest of time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, now, our first resolution that we are considering tonight is RS 2022-1855, Gamble, Johnson, Hauser, and others. Do we have a motion to move forward? Thank you. This appropriates $1,600,000 in the American Rescue Plan Act, Fund number 30216, to the Metropolitan Development Housing Agency for a pilot program to provide wraparound services to residents. Do we have any discussion or questions? If not, all those in favor? Any against? Any abstain? Okay, thank you. Our second item tonight is RS 2022-1856 with Spilova, Gamble, Johnson, and others. This appropriates, first, I'll have a motion to move forward. Thank you. This appropriates $5 million in the American Rescue Plan Act Fund 30216 to the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency to provide gap funding for 150 affordable units at Casey Place through Envision Casey plan. Do we have, excuse me? Yes. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Envision Casey is doing great things, so I'm excited that we can be supportive of that. Could we get just a little bit more explanation of what the gap is that we're filling? Is that an MDHA question? I see Dr. White.
Good evening. Am I on? Okay, I'll talk a little louder. Good evening. It has been a long day. For some of you that don't know, I got to spend 45 minutes in an elevator so I could make it to this meeting. To be here tonight, that's why I'm sitting in the back recuperating my mind from the 45 minutes. With me is Jamie Berry, our Chief of Staff at MDHA. I want to thank the committee for recommending this item. This is a $5 million recommendation for 150 units that would be at 80% of AMI and below. This would fill 3 projects that we have. During my tenure, we were just awarded in August a 9% tax credit at 5th and Summer. So there'll be 107 units being built there starting in the spring of 2023. We will be proposing to apply for a 203-unit bond deal, which would be our Bosco 5 and 6 area, where the remaining of the units will be. The $33,333 is gap financing. As everyone knows, costs have gone through the roof in construction. So we're somewhere around 15 to 20% over where our threshold would be. So these dollars will be put to use very quickly and meaningfully. So I want to make sure that the members of the committee know when we say we're going to put the dollars to use, you will see the dollars to use, because we'll be having a groundbreaking within the next couple of months for 5th and Summer. Then we'll be putting in an application to THDA for the other 203 units as part of our effort to speed up the Casey redevelopment. Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Thank you. Any other questions regarding this resolution? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Any against? Any abstaining? Thank you. And Councilmember Allen, if you would come up and do number 3, please.
Of real property to certain nonprofit organizations and authorizing grants not exceeding $15,045,144 from the Barnes Fund for Affordable Housing to certain nonprofit organizations selected for the express purpose of constructing and rehabilitating affordable or workforce housing. Do I have a motion? It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? We have 2 people that need to abstain, Councilmember Hauser and Councilmember Mendez. Are we ready to vote? All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? 2 abstaining. You recommend.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Allen. We're now on item number 4, which is RS 2022-1858. Roten, Welch, and others. Do I have a motion? Second? Okay. This authorizes grants not to exceed $4,950,000 from the Barnes Fund for affordable housing to certain nonprofit organizations for the express purpose of constructing and rehabilitating affordable or workforce housing. Do we have any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? The bill passes. Our next item, number 5, is RS 2022-1859, Hauser, Roten, and Welch. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Thank you. This approves the Fourth Amendment to grant contracts for constructing affordable housing approved by RS 2017-965 between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through Metropolitan Housing Trust Fund Commission and the Affordable Housing Resources. Do I have any questions? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Item number 6 is RS 2022-1860, Spalova, Gamble, Johnson, and others. Do I have a motion? Okay. This appropriates $10 million in the American Rescue Plan Act, but it's from Fund Number 30216 to the Housing Division for the Metropolitan Planning Department to increase home ownership opportunities and housing security populations with historical barriers and demonstrated inequities in home ownership. Do I have any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any against? Any abstain? Item number 7. RS 2022-1861, Spalova, Gamble, Johnson, and others. Do I have a motion? This appropriates $8 million in the American Rescue Plan Act funds from Fund Number 30216 to the Housing Division of the Metropolitan Planning Department to support housing for older adults by developing additional affordable housing inventory and creating opportunities for home ownership to age in place. Do I have any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? Item number 8, RS 2022-1862, Spalova, Campbell, Johnson, and others. Do I have a motion? This appropriates $7 million in the American Rescue Plan funds from Fund Number 30216 to the Housing Division of the Metropolitan Planning Department to build 108 new units of affordable housing for families at below 50% AMI. Any questions or discussion? Alan?
Did we move it? I move approval. So I just have a question about the co-op model. Is there someone that can talk a little bit about that and how, working through the barns, we can make sure whoever does it knows how to do co-op? Because I don't know that that's happened in Nashville yet.
Admin table's on.
Yes. Hi, thank you. Hannah Davis from the Housing Division. Yes, we can do that. And if you'd like, we can share kind of how we'll be creating that scoring matrix and presenting to the Housing Commission for their vote. But one of the things we're looking for is that expertise because we want to make sure that we can scale that here in the city.
Does that satisfy your question? Okay. Any other questions? Then we're ready for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Item number 10, RS 2022-1861, Johnson, Gamble, Spalova, and others. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
This appropriates $500,000 in the American Rescue Plan Act funds from Fund 30216 to Our Place Nashville for the provision of affordable housing for adults with developmental disabilities. Do I have any questions or discussion? Since there are no questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Any abstaining? We have a late file resolution. And on the late file, do I read it first, or what do I do? Read it. Okay. Okay. The late file resolution is a resolution approving a grant between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville, Davidson County, and the Salvation Army to provide temporary gap housing. Do I have a motion to move forward? Okay. Any questions or discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Any abstaining? Thank you. That concludes our business for today. We are adjourned. Thank you.